Today on the Science Nights, we're going to find out if the Earth is as flat as my abs or as round as my head. Hello, everybody. I'm Josh.
I'm John.
I'm Adam.
Yes, he was a better joke this time.
It was. You caught me off guard. I was like, okay, flat abs. Yeah. You did. That was nice.
Today we're going to do our first of a recurring series we're going to do of pseudosciences. There are a ton of pseudosciences out in the universe. There's flat Earth, there's creationism, astrology. There's so many. If you have more, put them in the comments. But today's all about flat Earth, and today John's in the big chair.
Yeah.
So he's gonna
Little man, big chair.
He's gonna walk us through flat Earth, and Adam and I are going to, and we're gonna have a discussion about the tenets of flat Earth.
And we're gonna try to be good. Right?
Not gonna be We're not gonna be mean or
We're just gonna
derisive.
discuss facts.
Yeah.
So the first one I'm gonna bring up is flat earthers believe that the horizon always appears to be.
Hang on. What is the flat Earth for just to get us all on the same page?
The Earth is not a sphere; it is a big flat circle.
Yeah.
It's like a disc.
Turtles all the way down.
Yeah.
Turtles all the way down, sitting on top of an elephant.
What is this joke? I don't understand this one.
The world turtle. It comes from like an old India Hindu belief about the world being on top of a turtle. And
Really?
the question is, well, what's below the turtle? So the joke is it's turtles all the way down.
Yeah. Standing on top of an elephant.
Why an elephant?
Because India.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I never heard this.
It originates really, really far back. Like
it's a meme based on a myth.
I guess. Yeah.
The old world turtle. Huh?
I'm surprised you haven't heard that. It's pretty popular on Reddit.
Well, I remember like the lion turtle from like Avatar.
Yeah, but just the whole turtles all the way down saying
That's funny.
It's pretty popular on Reddit.
Okay.
So.
Right on.
What's underneath it? Turtles all the way down.
So not only do the flat earthers believe, it's hard to say believe, but like
they believe
yes that
strongly.
the Earth is a disc, but there's also a ring of ice around the disc, and that
a wall, if you will.
An ice wall,
like,
and then there's a glass dome.
Yes.
There's a glass dome where the stars are in the sky, and that the sun and the moon are spotlights.
Yes, we're getting there.
Pretty much, yeah. With opposite lights.
Yeah. So we'll get through all of that,
more ridiculous.
But I wanted to lay it all out real quick.
Yeah.
Just so.
Okay.
Sorry, John.
No, you're fine.
So.
Producer on the couch, huh, Josh? I'm just kidding. So the first thing we're going to discuss is they're just observational from the human eye. They say the horizon always appears to be completely flat, 360 degrees to the observer, and regardless how high you go up, any curvature you think you see is from, like they say, from like curved airplanes or GoPro, from
lenses.
Airplane windows or GoPro lenses. But the horizon always comes to meet the observer's eye flat.
That it's at eye level.
It's a plane.
At all times.
Yeah. Which is...
And they've done their own test from balloons.
Yeah, from independent balloons, not owned by any government entity or program or whatever.
Right, but how many of them are actually doing these tests or just taking data that they pull off of these? Like, basically they just find the source video and like, look, see, it's flat, or look, see, it's curved because of the lens, fisheye or whatever, you know.
So there's a couple things that they're attacking there, right? The first one is that there's no perspective change on how high or low you are.
Yes.
Like we absolutely see a difference in horizon based on height.
Right. The higher you go, the more you see.
The more horizon you see. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Also, they have what else do they say? The observational. So we have a lens, like the whole lens argument. There's a lens on your eye.
Yeah.
That is worse at bending light than a fish's eye is. So if you're going solely on what your naked eye can see, then you're already a little flawed because it's not as objective as you can be.
Right. Well, our eyes are not very sensitive, and like compared to equipment that can measure these things, you know.
Sure.
We're talking about tiny, like 1 degree at the most of curvature.
Right.
Know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like that's the farthest you can see. Right.
So like a good example was they said basically, and this is against it, but they're like, so if you look at a basketball as a human, you can clearly see the curvature. But if you shrunk yourself down in relation to the size, versus the Earth of a basketball,
right?
And I can't remember what it came out to. It was like 8 point something like nanometers or something like.
It's tiny. We're
but then you would have the same perspective as the Earth, and they're like, so what flat earthers don't seem to grasp is the size of the Earth.
Scale? I don't think they understand scale.
Right. Exactly. Like, you can't see it because you physically can't get a perspective that would allow you to notice the curvature.
So it was what the basis of that argument was what? It was that observational?
It always appears 360 degrees. It appears flat to the observer, and no matter your height, the horizon always rises up to the eye of the observer and still appears to be flat, and you cannot see any curvature from there.
It's a good in all of the evidence that you see from these people. It's always like, go climb Mount Everest. Well, you go climb Mount Everest.
Right.
We don't need to. We've done the research. We know.
Like anytime you do something, right? Anytime you're like, oh, I'm gonna, measure this. I'm gonna eyeball this.
Yeah.
Not
that's
precise.
never accurate. You may be in the
Close,
ballpark. You may be pretty close, but you're never gonna be accurate.
They've never heard the saying "measure twice, cut once."
Right. So you can't say that for sure. You looking out at the horizon that it's exactly eye level and that you're not tilted down by half a degree or something along those lines.
Yes.
So what's the next one?
So, sorry. The natural physics of water is to find and maintain its level, right, on a flat plane. That's what water does.
Yeah.
It's basically, you could consider it a leveling agent in a way. Like, it doesn't solidify and make a flat surface, but it will spread itself out.
It will show you a level. We use levels all the time, and they're water-based, so I'll give you that.
But it says if the if the Earth were a giant spinning sphere, tilting and hurling through space and truly flat, consistently level surfaces would not exist here.
Water levels because of gravity, right?
Yeah, so this is where they go deeper into the gravity part.
Okay.
If gravity is really force strong enough to hold the world's oceans, buildings, people, and atmosphere stuck to the surface of a spinning ball, then it is impossible for gravity to also simultaneously be weak enough to allow little birds, bugs, and planes to take off and travel freely, unabated in any direction. And it says if gravity is strong enough to curve the massive expanse of oceans around a globular Earth, it would be impossible for fish and other creatures to swim through such forcefully held water. And that's
so they're taking gravity.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's the point. But this is the kind of misinformation that's being released to people that are believing this.
Yeah.
And they're not doing the research. And if they are doing the research, they're doing it from a perspective of, well, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
But then again, we're being pretty close-minded when it comes to our rebuttals here. Like, we should all mention, like, this is not an objective debate.
Yeah.
We all actually,
we all believe the Earth is a sphere.
Yeah,
yes.
it's all
obviously.
the best way to illustrate it is actually in the video that John shared with us, and it's an Always Sunny episode where they do. It's like the trial of the century or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's trial, but they're debating evolution.
Yeah, and they debate evolution in that, and they use Mac brings up you reading books that people that you don't know wrote, and do you just have faith because you haven't done the measurements?
Did you pour over the facts and
Well, yeah. So that's what we haven't done. Like, we're not the scientists who went out, and we're not Isaac Newton, and we didn't discover the law or come up with the law of gravity, but we abide by it. I mean, so I want to address the flat as far as like a level water. I don't know if anyone's seen the oceans, but they're freaking torrential. They're not all. None of them's flat ever. So if you want to go with that argument, you don't have
that's still such a small scale compared to the overall.
What they're talking like they think that rivers would flow uphill. There'd be massive flooding.
If gravity worked that way.
Well, if the Earth were spinning like that and hurtling through space, they're saying that it would be causing chaos with water all the time.
Right.
Like, things wouldn't work right. That doesn't make sense.
Part of their argument is that we're moving.
Yes.
Well, at least we agree on.
Moving is their argument.
We're not moving. Okay.
Yeah. We're stationary from their perspective, from their beliefs.
Yep. From their belief, we are stationary.
Why would you want to believe you're not traveling 17,000 miles an hour? That's awesome. I am sitting right now and I'm going faster than a car.
I think one of the best things about that, ever said was actually Joe Rogan. during a stand-up routine. And he said, have you ever stopped to think about the fact, he's like, that we're on a giant ball hurtling through space at 17,000 miles an hour or whatever, you know? And he's like, and people are worried about all this petty crap on Earth. And he's like, you ever stop to just think about how freaking crazy that is? Like, you know, because it is. It's a crazy, like, when you really think about it, you're just like,
they don't want to think about it, though. That's the problem, why they don't believe that. Like, in that one video we all watch, it talks about how, like, it goes against the natural, like, common
knowledge
sense or whatever.
Exactly.
You don't, if you were just born and never heard anything about this, you wouldn't assume that we were moving through space.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't assume that the Earth was round.
Yeah, their argument is, why aren't we trusting our senses?
Is their
argument?
Basis,
ignorance is their argument?
Well, because they're saying, you know, you trust your senses, you use your senses to observe the world every day. They're saying, why don't we trust our senses on this?
Because your senses can be fooled.
And not just that, our senses are not equipped to deal with something on this scale.
Yeah.
Like,
our
there's
senses
nothing
are designed
we
to keep
can
us alive.
see from standing on the flat, like standing on Earth.
Evolved to keep us
in
alive.
an area. You can't see anything that would force you to believe that. So it does make sense that that's what they believed back in the day.
Right.
The Earth is flat, because that's what their senses would allow them to see. They didn't have any instruments or ideas or experiments to run at the time, or even the thought probably for a very long time before somebody said, wait a minute.
When's your time scale on that too? Because one of the things that they harp on, flat earthers do, is that it was widely accepted until the 15th or 16th century. That's not true. Eratosthenes traveled from Egypt to Alexandria and did the measurement. Aristotle postulated that the Earth has to be round. BC Greeks, thousands of years ago, were like, we're on a ball, guys. I mean, come on. And it wasn't just them. I mean, look at the Eastern cultures that had seafaring, Pacific Islanding cultures. They all live on a ball.
Yeah.
It's not a disc.
Yeah, so the other thing I want to just attack real quick, not attack, that's not a good word. I want to speak about, address, thank you. I was struggling for the word I wanted.
Beat down, murder, killed.
Is this thing about the insects or the birds, right? So these things, so for instance, birds, because we know that gravity affects things with greater mass stronger.
Yeah.
So they've developed things like hollow bones. Or insects with their hardened exoskeletons and carapaces that like allow them to have like basically a fluid body on the inside and they're very light. They don't feel the effects like we feel. The larger the mass is, the stronger the gravitational pull is on the object, and the more noticeable it is.
Absolutely.
And like I said, these things have evolved to deal with gravity and be able to move around, you know, and obey the laws
better than
of
us.
physics. Yeah, and obey the laws of physics still. So just saying, because there's small gravity to hold the ocean's got to be so strong. The ocean is a very large mass.
Right.
It's massive.
You also have to remember, like, gravity is really weak, actually.
Yeah, but that's what they're saying. Strong enough to hold the ocean, weak enough to let the bugs fly. They're saying that doesn't make sense. They're saying it's counterintuitive.
Well, I mean, if you just look at gravity and you don't know that, if you just look at, like, I see birds fly and I see water stay, then you're like, well, yeah, that's the thing I come up with. But I think it goes back to ignorance is the argument, you know? So... Right, like, but that's another thing. Like, a lot of flat earthers will say, "Well, we're woke. We pay attention to the actual things that are going on, and we question our reality." And well, I mean, yeah, you do in a sense, but you question it in a political manner as opposed to question it into like a natural physical world manner.
Hashtag stay woke.
Well, I mean, I will. Oh wait, it's got to be over here because there we go. Because John's right above me.
Yeah.
But I think that's the problem, right? Yes, question everything, but question everything in a sense that you're making sure your questions are aimed at the right thing,
and you're being objective.
Well, yeah.
And
coming to logical conclusions.
Yeah. So the flat earthers' main argument, I think, are we gonna get to the conspiracy part of this yet, or?
Not yet.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
My
we're
bad.
Like 2 in, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're just expanding each.
So This one, if the Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, as NASA and modern astronomy claim, spherical trigonometry dictates a surface of all standing water must curve downward an easily measurable 8 inches per mile multiplied by the square of the distance. This means along a 6-mile channel of standing water, the Earth would dip 6 feet on either end from central peak. Every time such experiments have been conducted, however, standing water has proven to be perfectly level. Bedford level experiment, proof of no curvature.
Yeah, that's the Bedford thing that I was reading about too.
Yeah.
I actually never came up with a rebuttal for this one before we started.
So basically, my understanding, and
I'll have an image of the Bedford process up and what they're expecting. It's a globe that has notches in it that we expect to see curvature, but then it's compared to observational.
Right, like it'll show a line coming out and then the degrees. Yeah. My understanding is that they're using their math wrong, and that's based on... I was watching the explanation of this, but it's based off of like they're not considering their perspective into it.
I have an answer for you.
Woo! Thank you.
Yeah, a little Google help. You know, sometimes you gotta go back and realize you didn't know as much as you thought you knew. So Robotham is the one who performed the Bedford level experiment, but the problem is the way he did that experiment was he used a telescope. And he waded into the center of the river, a very flat and straight river, and he watched a boat sail away, and he theorized that if it drops 6 feet in 6 miles, he's like, I should see the boat's mast dip, you know, as it travels out in the distance. He then published his findings in the Zetetic Astronomy in 1849 using the pseudonym Parallax. So then he made a challenge, because people were disagreeing with what he found, that said, if anybody can prove me wrong, you'll get 500 pounds. And then this guy, Alfred Russel Wallace, a legitimate geographer and surveyor, accepted the challenge. And what he did was he put markers 13 feet off the level of the water and above the atmospheric interference of like light and stuff like that with the surface, so that it would be avoided, and then put those markings down the river, and was able to successfully show that there is a dip that you can measure. But the referee judging the competition said that it wasn't, because there's still like bending of light and atmospheric interference as far as like the way you can see. They're saying that it wasn't clear enough and that he didn't prove it, and that Robotham's theory and previous experiments still stands, and he did not win, and they ended up getting into a big argument and lawsuit.
The contention is that, like, I wonder if that was ever cleared up.
They're using an experiment from 1840.
Yeah. I wonder if that was ever eventually cleared. I hope it was eventually cleared up, because the other guy's right. The second guy's right.
Yeah.
But if they base it on that, then you're not really... Like, that's not the point of science, right? Scientists want to be wrong. And apparently he wasn't wrong.
Yes, they do. And they're a good scientist is completely accepting of, like,
that
a failed
I was
experiment.
Wrong.
You come up with a hypothesis, you test it, that's the point. And if it doesn't work out the way you think it should, then yes, you go back to the drawing table and you start going, okay, well, one, we need to figure out why it's not behaving like we believe it should. You know?
So I have a real world example.
But every scientist is a part of this round Earth conspiracy. Every one of them.
Yeah, and even us, and we're not even scientists. I have a rebuttal to this. A bridge in New York that is a little bit more than 2 miles long. It's the Verrazano Narrows Bridge in New York City. It was designed and constructed with the bridge of the bridge has 2 towers in it for the suspension, and they are 1 inch and 5/8 wider apart at the top than they are at the bottom, to account for the curvature of the Earth. Because it's a 2.5 mile bridge. That's a freaking long ways. So,
and you said 1.5 inches?
1 inch and 5/8.
1 inch and 5/8. Okay.
So if that's just that at 2 miles, their 6 mile argument doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? This bridge, like, if this bridge was flat and it's perceived as flat as you're going over it, but it's not, you would have like a bow like that in your bridge if they were the same size.
Yeah.
You also would never be able to discern that from your naked eye that it was 1 inch and
5/8. Yeah,
bigger,
absolutely.
You know? And the whole 8 inches per square mile thing, they're leaving out the height of the observer and any atmospheric refractions.
That perspective too, we've been talking about, which is most of what we've been talking about.
The more you see, which is they have to ignore that, because that proves the curvature. Then, you know.
it's also like it's a triangle then, right? It's you can use the Pythagorean theorem to plot your sight line down to the ground.
Yeah,
You know?
because the point of that experiment was that the posts, they should have been posts in the ground.
Yeah.
They should have all been at the same level, all the way down 6 miles. And then the post in the center should have been 3 feet higher than the post at either end.
Yeah.
But his experiment, which he, in the diagram, the old school diagram of it, there are posts and he's measuring that, but that's not how the experiment was conducted.
No.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's move on. What else? What else do we got?
The sun is much closer than we have been told. It is in fact in our atmosphere. You can clearly see that it is not 93 million miles away. Many times you can see the sun's rays shooting out of a cloud, forming a triangle, referring to the refraction. You follow the rays to their source, it will always lead to a place above the clouds. Yeah, in space, jackass. Sorry, that was not right. That just came out of there. It will always point to a source above the clouds. If the sun was truly millions of miles away, all the rays would come up in at a straight angle. Also, the sun can be seen directly above the clouds in some balloon photos, creating a hot spot on the clouds below. And in other photos, you can see clearly the clouds dispersing directly underneath the close, small sun.
So, not only do they not have an understanding of basic physics, there's no understanding of astrophysics nor of like
light refraction.
Well,
or
it's all
anything like
lies.
light
It's
and
all-
yeah,
that's the
okay,
point.
yeah. But
So-
if it's lies, man, you're giving credit to way too many liars. Like,
This is also the type of person you can never convince otherwise, right?
Sure.
Because
Yeah, so-
if everything is a lie, then
I just showed an image
you
to the
know.
camera, and I'll show it to you guys.
you
So
should have just.
You see with the clouds though, in a short area, they're coming out at different angles.
Right,
These
but-
light refraction, and so
So this is another one of those times where they're not ignoring perspective, I guess, this time. They're using
It's
it because
just
it
their
helps them out
perspective,
in this one argument.
Yeah.
You know. Yes, the sun is so big and so far away that by the time all the light rays hit Earth, they are all parallel to each other.
But that's not what they're saying. They're saying the sun is close.
right, but because the lines aren't parallel is what they're saying. But it's the perspective that you're seeing. So think of like the sunbeams going through the clouds, right?
I'm not disagreeing with you.
all
I'm
you have to
saying
do
that-
is send light through a prism, like our atmosphere would act. And when you send light through a prism, it shoots out at different angles, right? And you get a similar effect when light travels through the atmosphere. And, for instance, clouds and stuff like that. Because now you're talking moisture in the air and all kinds of
Right,
other things.
because also all
That
those
light can
pictures are
refract off
taken
of.
when the sun is low on the horizon.
And we also know that light can bend.
That's what we were talking about. That's
Yeah,
what refraction
that's what I'm
is.
saying.
Bending.
So-
yeah.
But the fact that they're just like, no, clear angular proof. It's right above those clouds there.
To demonstrate that
Why don't you fly a balloon into the sun then?
to demonstrate that light
Nobody
can
gets
bend. To demonstrate that light can bend, just look at a straw in a glass of water.
Yeah.
It has a parallax. It appears in two places at once. That's because the light's bending through water and the glass.
But that's all.
But that's a lie?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm
That's
hearing?
all a big lie.
Okay, what's next?
Not
we can
easily proven or anything.
The sun is the other argument that they make with that is that the moon has to be the same size as the sun, and that these figures were given about the 93 million miles away from Earth is where the sun is. The sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, but the moon is also 400 times closer than the sun is. That these are all just facts that are given to us. That's that argument they have about like question what's given to you.
Another
and stuff
one
like
they
that.
have is if a plane is traveling over like flying through the air, if the Earth was really a sphere, it would have to be constantly dipping its nose to maintain itself to the curvature of the Earth. But again, we're
Gravity.
not accounting for gravity.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're also not accounting. Like, still, I think still perspective comes into play, right? You're only
That
5
too.
miles above the Earth. You're not 10 miles above the Earth. You're not 30 miles above
You're
the Earth.
also
And then-
teeny tiny.
Yeah, you're
so
also this big.
In the pictures when they show that they're showing a plane that's like
From the wing.
You know.
Yeah.
If you were like 20, if your plane was like 25% the size of the Earth or something like that, then
Then,
you
yeah,
know,
absolutely, yeah.
So it would be noticeable
But
then.
then
right?
they're saying
You would also be noticed.
but they're also saying, so if the Earth was spinning Airplanes going west would get to their destination much faster since the Earth is spinning in the opposite direction. If the atmosphere is spinning with the Earth, then airplanes flying west would have to fly faster than the Earth's spin to reach its destination in reality.
Well, that's not even how planes fly if they're going that way. They go up and over. I mean, I know that some of them come down and around, but most times if you're going west, at least from the north side, you go up like that.
Well, you're still moving that fast, but this is all a reference frame thing, right? Like it would be to a plane. They're only concerned about how fast they're moving in relation to the stable ground. Right?
Yeah.
So when you launch a rocket, you do launch out that way, so that way you can take advantage of that speed and to get to your orbital speed faster.
Yeah, so that was that argument they had in that video where rockets, if you want to go up in a rocket, you just go up. You don't go up and then that way.
Yeah, they have no understanding of orbital mechanics.
That's the periapsis.
You will just go straight up, and then gravity will basically just pull you straight back down.
Yeah.
Because you have to be to maintain an orbit, you have to be going at a consistent speed, right? Like a certain speed per height to stay in a stable orbit.
But you also got to you have to break gravity out, and why not use the momentum of the Earth to get you out of it?
Right, because then you have to get to your escape velocity.
Yeah.
So
I think we superseded a point of yours.
Well, I was just gonna say this is where you're just trusting the facts of other people.
That's not true, because I learned this by playing Kerbal Space Program.
Yes. His own hands-on space simulator.
Yeah, very good simulator.
Built by NASA.
Used by NASA.
Used by
NASA, not built by NASA.
I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I was being...
And sponsored by it. They built the DLC for it, so...
Nice.
But I think what John is getting at is the kind of the crux of the flat Earth conspiracy, and it's a conspiracy. Is that every scientist and every government on Earth that believes the Earth is round, which I'm pretty sure is all of them. At least those that are...
I would think the majority of people.
that all of those people are lying. Every one of them, and we've all drank the Kool-Aid and bought the poison and ate the wafer.
And now they can funnel money into their space programs to make it a black ops,
so
they can use it for whatever they want.
If we're going from a budgetary side, they argue that 2016 NASA's budget was 19.3 billion. That's a fraction of the regular budget. Do you know who makes more money than NASA by like a factor of 100? The military-industrial complex.
Oh yeah,
war makes more money than by a lot. I mean, so if you're going by funneling money, why would they need to funnel money through NASA when they can just do it through the rest of the budget?
Yeah.
There's no reason for that argument.
There's no need to lie.
Get that mess out of my house.
I like in that video where they play the Men in Black scene where they're like, humans are stupid, dumb, panicky animals,
A group of us, we'll probably panic a little bit. But that's like, that's a psychology thing.
If scientists came out and just were able to prove the Earth was flat, like with good, solid evidence, and they had the supporting evidence to back it up,
peer-reviewed and
everything like that, and were able to do it, then I wouldn't freak out. I would just be like, mind blown.
That's how things are, huh?
Like mind blown.
I would freak out because that goes contrary to if you've ever watched a sunset or the terminated line on the moon, the shadow,
Yeah. But the curve. No.
Yeah. The curve or like I said, you watch a sunset. If it was getting further away, it would be small. It would get smaller and smaller.
It would also be really disheartening if it was true that it was flat, because then all of that romanticism that I just went through editing the Apollo missions of seeing Earth as a whole and watching the Earth rise around the moon and stuff.
God, I love those.
All of that, and you're just like, well, that is a lie.
I love they use the clone tool on the clouds on Earth.
Oh,
They wrote sex in the clouds.
That was stupid.
Come on.
one of the arguments that flat earthers have is that every photo that we've seen of the Earth
CGI
is photoshopped or doctored or messed with ever since the 1960s, and these are all the photos from NASA that were done over the course of not only the Gemini, Mercury, and Apollo missions, but since, and like the Discovery and all that stuff, and the ISS and stuff like that. Like footage from the ISS is all CGI'd and faked. This harkens back to our discussion that we had on Apollo during the second Apollo mission. It's just like, man, you're giving the government way too much credit first, and then second, you're eliminating the hard work of thousands and thousands and thousands of people over generations
who have no reason to lie to you.
Right.
So, like, there's this one specific picture that they always bring up about. You were saying about like using the clone
tool,
The blue marble or whatever.
Right, but they're very open about the fact that that's a composite picture. A lot of images you see are composite pictures taken from thousands of different satellite images.
Yep.
And the point of that picture was to get the most detailed image that they could.
Yeah.
So it was taken from thousands of different satellite photos, different layers, like, you know.
A composite image, they put it together.
Right.
Which,
right.
and as Adam said, they've been open about it, but...
Like the ones where they're like with the lights, and they're like, ever seen it with no clouds, blah, 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 you know, across whole continents.
There's a cloud in that, you can see clouds in there when they're talking about that.
Yeah, when it's night.
Yeah.
When it's night and they're going over, you can see clouds.
But it's also clearly a composite.
And they say something like, so that means that when you turn on your front porch light, no.
When you turn on your front porch at night.
It's like, what, 40, 50 watts, 60 watts?
Yeah.
You know, these are massive cities that are creating those lights.
Which is 60 watts times 100,000.
Millions.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
Yeah.
light pollution is a real thing.
It is.
And you can see it from space.
Yep.
You can.
You know, there's a little dark spot where North Korea is. But then on the bordering South Korea and China, there's a big bright spot right there. Yeah. I always think that's funny. And like a lot of like, you know, the middle of Africa is very dark, and then there's you know, South America, most of the Amazon jungle that's left is very dark and stuff. But everywhere there's a coast. Lit up.
Yeah. Well,
Water.
you got ports and everything.
Yeah. So and like I think that's the most disheartening thing for me is that like you take away, like it's flat. Yeah. You take away the epicness that is the Earth if it's a ball. I think there's something that's awesome to be said about we are a giant spheroid, like a sphere. Like think of I keep coming up with images of like you're on a giant pool cue, you're on a giant basketball, you're on a giant like golf ball, whatever. Like that's awesome. I'm on a plate. Yeah.
I wonder how many people actually believe this, right?
Or they just rally and rail.
A vocal few, 100 maybe or so. That,
sure.
That like I want to, because I mean we've discussed this before, right? Like I personally know some people that don't believe in the moon landing. Mm-hmm. I don't think they believe in the flat Earth thing, though.
Right? Know, like that's too much. You're right. It is. It's like a small squeaky wheel.
Right.
Like no politics. Yeah, you're right. And I wonder now. What do you? Okay, let's wrap up this episode. What do you think, John?
Did you have any more points you wanted to bring up real quick?
Well, just the Antarctic ice wall. Just real quick, because we did mention it, but we never really...
This is why ships don't fall off the edge of the world.
Yeah,
oh my
so
goodness.
During 3 voyages lasting 3 years and 8 days, Captain Cook and crew sailed a total of 60,000 miles along the Antarctic coastline, never once finding an inlet or path through or beyond the massive glacial wall. They do realize it's a circle, right?
Yeah, so they just went like this.
So he just didn't get, he just this one little area.
And it's always on our right. This is amazing.
Yeah.
As they
sail around it.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, they use very antiquated evidence, right?
Oh, yeah.
What was it before?
And none of it's strong.
The Bedford line and then this.
Well, and some of this, at least this one video that we're talking about mostly, specifically was making you believe like you can't go to Antarctica, right? Like nobody's allowed
unless you're doing scientific work.
Absolutely untrue.
Yeah.
After we did the eclipse episode, we all got all excited about eclipses and stuff. I looked into the one
that's
few
going
years
through
in Antarctica, and I mean it's like $10,000 for a trip down there. So it's
but
not
you can go.
Easily accessible, but you can go.
So I would argue about the scientist thing. Do you consider like videographers and documentarians, are they scientists? Yeah. Okay.
It's recording stuff, right?
Yeah. I guess that's scientific, but they're not like I'm not a microbiologist
themselves.
But they're creating the data they can.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Cool.
And the records.
And what I was gonna say is, there's another one where they think so. There's a glass dome ceiling, right?
Yeah.
And we're all inside of this. And outside of it, there's a theory that it's all water.
Yeah.
And so basically, when there's a bubble suspended in water and sound waves travel through it at a certain vibration, it excites the molecules in that bubble, and then it glows extremely bright. Right? And this is
It does?
Yeah, there's experiments for this. But they believe that it's all water on the outside and that the stars are just bubbles. This isn't everybody. This is a different... Like,
this is a branch.
I was going to say it's a branch. I don't want to say every flat earther believes this part. But
oh, no, that's crazy.
And that sound waves are traveling through this, and that's what's causing to excite these molecules and light up these bubbles, and those are the stars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't this crazy? Like the stuff.
Did anybody else just kind of zone out at the end?
No,
of that?
I got that, but
it's this kind of stuff though.
Yeah.
They're using these small scale, small level experiments, and then just going, "Hey, that
it works that way everywhere. Yeah.
That works.
Right.
So that's got to be what's going on. That makes sense."
I think so. Let's work on wrapping it up, and I'll start. There's 3 problems that I think the flat Earth theory has. One of them is perspective, one of them is scale, and the other one is just a general sense of physics. So perspective and scale can kind of go hand in hand, and then if you don't have a grasp of how the world naturally works, and of course you're going to be likely to believe it. Maybe it's scale, perspective, and ignorance. How about that? And that's not your fault. Maybe that is your fault, but I don't know. Those are the 3 problems I have with the flat Earth thing.
Yeah, I find it very frustrating, the ability for them to ignore evidence. And I get the argument of, did you do the experiment? Okay, that is kind of fair, because we are taking somebody's word. But the problem is other people have peer-reviewed this for us. And then they're going, well, you're taking their word, too. And it's like, well, at some point I have to.
Well, it's verifiable.
I don't have the capability or the equipment to do this on my own, so I have to trust the people that do. And ethics in science is a very important thing, and so we're trusting our scientists, and at the same time we're skeptical of scientists too. Certain research things that come out by, like, let's just say big pharma, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because then you got to wonder
if there was a
there's a difference between healthy skepticism and just flat out going no,
everything's a lie. Everything here is a lie.
It's all a conspiracy.
I cannot
they want to funnel $17 billion into NASA. It's like, why wouldn't they just allocate it elsewhere, like you were saying earlier, Josh? It's just these kind of things. Like, there's no good evidence as to why. It's just because it seems like a big number is why to them it seems like, well, that's what they're doing.
19 billion is a big number.
They're just wasting your money on CG to keep you believing, because once they got this lie out there,
125 billion is a big number.
I find it all very frustrating. I do. And I'm sure they find it very frustrating to hear me talk about this and going, you ignorant, you don't understand, get woke. And
they'll
this
probably
one,
never listen to this.
Yeah,
to be
we're
honest
gonna have to agree to disagree though on this one, flat earthers. It's round.
Yeah,
I think there's overwhelming evidence. I think we could go hours and hours talking about the evidence against it, or against the flat Earth idea and that the Earth is round. I think it's I think it's ridiculous that people are even people actually seriously believe that. Anybody at all,
Maybe we messed up and we were addressing people as opposed to addressing the theory during this. We should have been going like the flat Earth theory as opposed to you flat earthers, and so we shouldn't have done that. That's our bad.
That's probably the better way to say it, but it's still the same thing, right?
It is, but it's a little bit less confrontational, I think, which is probably where we should have started from the beginning. So maybe in the future, like we're definitely doing an astrology episode, and we're definitely going to do a creationism episode. We address it as the theory and not as the person. Like, instead of saying you creationists or Bible thumpers, be like, no, it's creationism. It's astrology, not you astrologers. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. You okay?
Yeah.
You look like you got lost in like a really deep thought all of a sudden.
I'm thinking.
You like looked to the side. You had your finger like, It was just like, oh, we lost.
I don't have a desk to hide behind. I'm awkward.
But yeah, no. I think we can definitely leave it there. I think that's plenty covered. There's a lot more, and there's crazier, deeper theories. All the way up to where the moon's a hologram, no joke. And that's
we didn't even get into the light that the moon casts.
Yeah,
the cooler light, opposite light.
Yeah, that like the shadows are hotter than.
Yeah, the moon is a light source, by
that's not reflected
in the flat Earth world.
Yeah,
which I don't see how they can explain then, like, eclipses and the phases of the moon and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think as a whole, it was fun to talk about.
Sure.
It's interesting to see the other side because you see, like, I'm on Reddit pretty often, and I see, like, images of cars, and it's like, flat Earth is real,
Yeah.
check this website, whatever. And it was fun to actually finally go through and listen to some of just to understand their argument. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's completely bogus.
That being said, I watched about like an hour and a half's worth of videos today, and I feel like I lost that time.
Yeah.
Time I could have spent.
But it
doing
was
much
still
better
interesting to just be like, wow, people really believe this. Like,
so many things taken out of context.
You know what I was surprised about is the more European people that were in those videos, like that were adhering to the Flat Earth Society or the Flat Earth tenets. Like the people with British accents and stuff. I'm like, oh come on, you're above this, Britain. Come on, this is a stupid.
We believe
American
in the
thing.
heliocentric model, and they believe in the geocentric model.
Yeah, there's that, and we also believe in a roundness.
Yes.
Well, we probably got a lot wrong, and I really would love. Maybe I'll post this to a Flat Earth forum or something.
Oh man!
But we really got a lot wrong,
we'll
and
get shredded.
And I would love to hear criticism back on the science or on the Flat Earth stuff.
Yeah.
To be honest,
It would have been nice to have had somebody here that believed in the whole flat Earth theory, but I don't think I know anybody.
I don't.
I don't think that.
Oh man, if
Maybe
that's
they don't really exist.
That's a great way to end it. So please be sure to check us out on our our website and all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next time for another episode of Science. Probably some solid science next episode.
Yeah, like actual science, not fake science.
Yeah, and I don't know what we're gonna do next. It's gonna be a mystery until you hear it next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Oh, boy. Bye.